Good evening, everybody. Thank you guys for coming out today. My name is Vance Patrick. I'm the chair of the Oakland County Republican Party, and I wish we were here for a different reason, because a couple weeks ago we lost a voice that was stimulating the youth of our party. And, you know, a couple of the people, a couple of the podcasters or whatever made it known that that generation's Rush Limbaugh was taken away from them. And, you know, we grew up listening to Rush Limbaugh. I remember my dad had it on in the garage all the time, and every time we would go to the hardware store, Dad was like, come on, jump in the truck, we're going to the hardware store. Rush Limbaugh would be on. And it's unfair that this generation lost their Rush Limbaugh. So, but what this has done is, I think it's created a movement that you see how many Turning Point chapters have been asked to be open, and it's I think we're going to be okay. I know Erica has been working hard to keep the movement going, and I think we're going to be okay. So with that being said, thank you for being here. Our office is right here, obviously, and we've got all kinds of Charlie Kirk swag in there. Denise Elias, my executive director, is around here somewhere. If she wasn't here, the lights wouldn't come on. The door wouldn't get unlocked. So without Denise, this place doesn't open. Well, she's here 10 to 4. We have a lot of different events that happen here. We've got a governor meet and greet on November 8th that's going to be coming up. There's going to be all the governor candidates that want to come by, and it's not a formal thing, it's kind of an informal thing. We're going to ask them 3 questions. Jackie Page from WWJ will be here. She's going to ask them 3 questions, and they're not gotcha questions or anything like that. In fact, I told Jackie, I said, I want the 3rd question to be, what's your favorite kind of ice cream? So, so the candidates are excited to come to a very relaxed donut and coffee event. And then on November 15th, we're going to have the congressional candidates. So Oakland County is a pretty unique county. Where's my team? We're the largest county in Michigan, and Oakland County has 1.3 million people in it, and you're not going to believe this, but Oakland County is bigger than 10 states. So we're bigger than Alaska. We're bigger in amount of people. Alaska, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana. But that's what it takes to run this party. So anyway, with that being said, I really appreciate everybody being here. Can I start with a Pledge of Allegiance before we get into my friend Judge Warren's here? Flag is over here. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Judge Warren is here to give us an invocation, and I'll tell you what, this guy is the hardest working judge in Oakland County. He shows up to everything I ask him for, and I truly appreciate his support and friendship. So Judge Warren, come on up.
This is going to be the longest invocation you've ever had to sit through, so I appreciate your patience, but I'd ask that we're going to invoke the Lord, and we want to thank Him for placing Charlie Kirk on this planet and in this nation at this time. And I will elaborate in just a moment, but what we're asking our prayers and petitions to the Master and Creator of the universe, Amen, to remind us of the importance of truth, the indispensable nature of courage, the vital importance of debate, and the unalienable right of free speech, for the blessings of limited government, and for patriotism. The ability to have our Constitution, which gives us our freedoms and liberties, I take that back, which protects our freedoms and liberties, including our individual liberties, for having a bedrock of Western civilization, which is defined by our Bible, for the amazing privilege and blessing of our history, and the knowledge that America's brightest days are in its future. I'm going to quote now Charlie Kirk to remind us of, we all know that we all don't believe everything that everybody says, okay? But these things are things that I think everyone in our nation ought to be able to embrace and love and cherish. Charlie said, "Truth is not determined by the loudest voice, but by reality itself." He believed that we hold these truths to be self-evident. We believe in truth. And we know that a rock cannot give birth to a giraffe, and that 1 + 1 is not 15, that there are certain truths that are self-evident, and that we must embrace that idea and must define our nation by the fact that there are self-evident truths. On courage, he wrote, or stated, "Courage is telling the truth even when it's unpopular." Right? It's really easy to stand up for the fad of the day, whatever public opinion is, put your finger to the wind and say you stand for that. And then as the polls change, you glide with that. And then as the polls change and currents change, you glide with that. That is not truth. That is not courage. And certainly Charlie had courage. I happen to be a former debater at Wayne State, and so I was always inspired by the fact that he would have these college campus discussions. And he said, "Healthy debate makes us stronger. Censorship makes us weaker." And nothing could be more true. Look at the course of human history and the regimes that were built upon censorship and oppression and repression of our unalienable rights. We don't stand for that in America. We stand up for freedoms and liberties and the ability to have a good-natured debate. And that he was slaughtered and assassinated in the middle of one of those debates is a travesty and tragic, but has not shut his voice. It's only made it louder. On free speech, he stated, "Without free speech, there is no such thing as truth. The moment you silence opposing voices, you destroy the foundation of democracy." Again, that unalienable right to be able to voice what we know is true is essential to preserving our freedoms and liberties. Unlimited government, he stated, "The bigger the government, the smaller the citizen." And isn't that true? Haven't we learned through the course of history that totalitarian regimes, dictatorships, monarchies, theocracies, which have oppressed the people, been huge and massive in power, and the citizen is but a cog in the machine? Flips the world upside down in what it should be. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Right? We believe that the people are sovereign, and that's what Charlie stood up for, that the government's supposed to serve us, not us, the government. On patriotism, for those of you that know about my work with my daughter on Patriot Week, this, of course, is near and dear to my heart. He stated, "America is the greatest experiment in the world, in freedom, the world has ever seen." Absolutely true. We are the essential, indispensable nation in the course of human history, flipping upside down all the tragedy and tyranny and oppression that existed before, and we are now, as you are indicating with your candles, a beacon of hope, a torch of liberty across the world and for generations, in the past and to come. He stated on the Constitution doesn't grant rights. It protects God-given rights. Again, we believe that we're born with those rights. They're in us. They're unalienable. They can't be taken away. That the government is to serve us, not us, the government, and that the purpose of government is to protect our rights that are already given to us by government. We don't have to go to the government and say, pretty please, may I worship my God? May I assemble with my friends? May I speak my mind? The government is there to ensure that we have that protections. He stated, when you surrender liberty for security, you lose both. Isn't that the truth? And a lot of people today might be saying, we have to give up our rights to make sure that we're free. We're taking our lives at risk right now, gathering to honor Charlie. We've got police force out there to ensure and protect us, but we know anything terrible can happen. But we're not going to be coward, and we're not going to be cowardly. We're going to be cowed into giving up our freedoms and liberties because of threats to our freedom. And then he said this, the Bible is not out of date. It's ahead of its time. It drives the left nuts when you say this. But all men are created equal in the eyes of God, all men and women. But not all cultures are created equal. Western civilization is the best that humanity has produced. It's an outgrowth of the Bible. Foundation bedrock. And we have all these apologists out there that want to equate what's going on in Iran and in China and in Russia and think of all the beheadings and the tyranny that happens with women in terrible regimes. And they say, well, that's just their culture. Charlie knew better. Charlie knew that America stood on top of as the best that we can do as human beings. We're not perfect. We certainly know that. We have a long way to go. We started flawed, but he acknowledged that as well. But he also knew that the only way to be the best that we can be is to live up to the principles of our Declaration of Independence and live up to the ideals of our Constitution. And he says, if you erase history, you'll repeat the mistakes. And isn't that true? And Vance dated us a little bit. He and I, when he was talking about Reagan and other things. We have a young generation, and really, Charlie Kirk was a generation below me. And I kind of looked at all about what he was able to do. And I look around here, we've got a lot of folks that are my age or a little bit older, but we have some younger folks in the crowd too. And it's essential that those younger folks be inspired and protected by us. And the work that Charlie did will continue so that we can be a better nation and a better people. Now I'm going to reach way back to Abraham Lincoln and his Gettysburg Address. And I thought about modifying it to address Charlie specifically, but those are sacred words. So I'm not going to do that, but I would ask you to think about what happened with Charlie, what he stands for, and the mission that we have today in light of what happened. He says, Lincoln said, now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus so far nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave their last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that those dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Amen. God bless you. God bless Charlie Kirk. God bless America. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna set a timer for myself because I like to speak. Some of you may know this if you already know.
introduce yourself.
I am James Hart. I'm 21 years old. I'm in the Air Force Reserves, and I am your local Turning Point Action Field representative for this area. My organization was founded by a smart, brave young man, and his name was Charlie Kirk, and he was our CEO as well. But now, since his assassination, which it was an assassination, his wife has taken the helm, and she is now our CEO. We love Ms. Kirk. We love his children, and we stand behind them and beside them in this fight against evil. I want to tell you about a story, my story, but also Charlie's story. And so I'm going to take you back to 2019, where a young James Hart, who lived in Detroit, didn't have a lot of family, didn't have a lot of money, went to high school, and he was in his freshman year. And he looked around, and he saw a clip, just scrolling on YouTube. He saw a clip, and it was a clip of Charlie Kirk, I believe 26 years old at the time, and a young Candace Owens on Fox News, going back and forth with the pundits and telling it how it was, that America's not a racist country, that President Trump is a great president, one of the greatest in our lifetime, and that the fight for freedom is not free, so someone has to speak up. All generations have to speak up. I saw that clip, and I said, you know, this young guy and this young girl, I said, they sound very smart, but how did they get that way? I'm assuming they went to college. I'm assuming that they got an education, because that's what we're supposed to do. At least that's what we're told we're supposed to do, is to go to college. But I found out Charlie never went. Straight out of high school, he went door to door, event to event, talking about the dream that he had, the dream to mobilize young Americans to start caring about their future, that what they were being told was a lie, and that they can write their own destiny in this book of history. And so I reached out to Turning Point USA, and I said, I live in a dark blue area. I don't have anyone who wants to start a chapter, and I don't know what I can do to get involved, but I want to get involved because I choose to be different. I choose to be better than my circumstance. And so they said to me, they said, well, first way you can get involved is by starting a chapter. And I told them, I said, once again, I live in a dark blue area, no chapters being started where I live. And they said to me, they said, well, we still believe that there's a place for you. And so what they did is they told me about an event called the Black Leadership Summit in 2019, at the height of when President Trump was being called the most racist president in the United States history, which I don't even know how that's possible, but you know, that's what they said. And they said, we want you to go there, and we want you to prove that someone who has no money, someone that has no connections, but someone that has the drive to get involved can make a difference. And so I told them, I said, well, how am I going to get there? I don't really have money to do that. And, you know, I can't really do anything for you here in Michigan where I was. It's dark blue, and it's not changing anytime soon. And they said to me, they said, we know, but we want to empower you. We want to amplify your voice. And so what we're going to do for you is, thanks to our gracious donors and supporters, our grassroots efforts, we're going to cover your lodging, your flight, and all your meals while you're at this event. And we're going to get you to the White House to listen to the President of the United States speak. That's the power of Turning Point. That's the power of the grassroots. And so in that, they kept their word. I went to the Reagan airport, and I went with $200 in my pocket, and I, instead of taking an Uber or a Lyft, I took a taxi cab, which was a bad mistake. That $200 that I took with me soon turned into $100. Never again. Never again. But in that, at the end of this event, last day, had no intention of meeting him. I run into a young Charlie Kirk, running real fast, trying to get to his car with one assistant. And I chased him down, and I said, I'm not crazy, I promise. But please stop. I want to tell you something. I want to tell you thank you for amplifying my voice. Thank you for getting me to where I was. And one day, you don't know it yet, but one day I'm going to work for you. And he looked down at me. He said, well, how are you going to make that possible? What are you doing now to advance that? And I said, well, I'm currently in school. And he's like, well, yes, that's important. And I said, well, other than that, I don't know what I can do. And he said, take out your phone, record a video every single day about how you feel as a young black man from Detroit about this country. And talk about what you like, what you dislike, what you agree with, what you disagree with. Don't even follow blindly President Trump. If you disagree with the president, say that. But if you agree with him, say that even louder. Make your voice heard, because he told me this. He said, I believe that you could be the next Charlie Kirk. He believed that anyone willing to speak up and fight for what they believed in could be the next Charlie Kirk. The individual that took his life thought that he was blowing out a flame. That's not true. He only added to the fire. And we will not back down. We will keep knocking doors at Turning Point Action. We will keep recruiting delegates. We will keep registering voters, because we believe that there is a fight to be had for our nation. There is something bigger than us, and Charlie believed in that, and we still believe in that. We are fighting for the soul of our nation, and we will amplify the voice of Christ through our efforts. Amen. We will stand up. So thank you all for showing your support and standing up for what you believe in. Because without you, he goes away. But with your voice, Charlie Kirk is bigger than ever before. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Tyler Sonkrant. I serve as the youth chair of the Oakland County Republican Party. Throughout my little political journey here, I've had the opportunity to serve as the MIGOP youth chair. I run the Southeast Michigan Young Republicans. I've had the opportunity to run for office twice. And there's quite a few other fun things that have been involved. But the reason I'm telling you this is because it all started when I joined a Turning Point USA chapter about 5 years ago at Oakland Community College. Now, after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, it took about a day to hit me, and it hit harder than I thought it would. And it's really crazy that I've had the privilege to meet Charlie Kirk twice, very shortly, very briefly. And when we lost him, it felt like you lost a best friend. It felt like you know him very well. And not just because of the hours of content that, he put out and all the work that he's done, it's because he affected all of us. And the impact that he had on all of our lives make it feel that you lost someone. We did lose someone important, but someone that feels like family. So let's be clear here. Our political violence is never acceptable. But at the same time, we have to fight harder than we've ever fought before. And we fight back by amplifying Charlie's voice, by registering voters, getting involved with your county parties, getting involved with becoming a delegate, volunteering on campaigns, and overall working tirelessly to elect leaders that will carry Charlie's message and that will uphold the values of God, family, and country. It says, as I mentioned earlier, I forgot to mention this, professionally I get to work with college students that are conservative across the whole state of Michigan. And as I work with them, I have to take a moment to give them a huge shout out, because after the assassination, these students have come together like nothing I've ever seen before. And they're sad, they're hurt, and they're angered, but above all, they're also fearless and motivated. And they're all putting in more time and energy in advancing the conservative movement on campus and within their communities than ever before. The day that Charlie Kirk got shot, I was getting ready to board a plane to go up to Marquette to work with the Turning Point chapter doing a 9/11 memorial. And it dawned on me I should probably call him to make sure that we're still planning to do this event the next day, so I don't fly up there for no reason. And I called them and I said, are you still planning to do this event? And he said, hell yeah, we are. We are not going to cancel any of our events or be scared, because that is what they want and we won't let them win. So that is the overall message that I'm getting from these students across just our state, but our country. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to pass that message along tonight. So with that, I would like to thank all of you for coming out here tonight. Thank you for the law enforcement that's helping protect our event tonight. Thank you to all the OCRP volunteers and staff and everybody here that helped set this up and make it possible. So may God bless the Kirk family. May God bless all of you. May God bless America. But most important, tonight, happy birthday, Charlie Kirk.
So it's what I was worried about. It's dark up here. As I printed my speech this afternoon, so I'm going to try to put a light here. Okay. Good evening, friends. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Shostak, and I'm the treasurer of Bloomfield Township, which is where we all are this evening. Just like Tyler, I'd like to give a shout out to the Bloomfield Township Police Department who are here in force tonight, keeping us safe. So let's give them a round of applause. Yeah. Come on, I didn't hear it. All right, much better. Much better. Now they can hear it. Okay. So, friends, 1 month ago we lost Charlie Kirk. Today would have been his 32nd birthday. Charlie grew up in the Chicago suburbs, and at a time when most kids his age were thinking about prom and college applications, Charlie made a decision that would change the conservative movement forever. He founded Turning Point USA in his parents' garage. No money, no connections, no idea what he was doing. Just conviction, energy, and a refusal to accept that young conservatives should sit down, stay quiet, and let the left own the future. In just 10 years, he built Turning Point into a force on over 3,500 campuses. Think about that. And not just in the U.S. In 10 years, this kid, no college education, did that. It blew my mind. I had no idea it was that big. Charlie became famous for his prove me wrong tables. Just sitting on a campus quad with a sign inviting anyone to debate him. No yelling, no name calling, just ideas. Hostile students would surround him, cameras rolling, trying to embarrass him. And time after time, he'd stay calm, he'd stay sharp, and win people over. That took guts. That took discipline. I could watch those videos for hours. I was astounded by the depth of his knowledge. He could quote ancient philosophers or our founding fathers as easy as he could the Bible. When Charlie started, conservative students were invisible on campuses. They were afraid to speak up, afraid to wear the wrong hat, afraid they'd be graded down or shouted down or ostracized from social circles. Charlie changed that. He built a network that was impossible to ignore. By the time he was 30, you couldn't walk across a major campus without seeing a Turning Point chapter. That was his victory. Not just one debate, but thousands of students who finally had backup. That kid from the suburbs also caught the attention of the most powerful office in the world. President Trump considered him part of his extended family. Charlie became a close friend of Donald Trump Jr., who happens to be my old college classmate, working side by side to bring President Trump back to the White House. And 1 month ago, at a college speaking event in Utah, someone tragically ended Charlie's life in an attempt to silence his voice. Tonight, on his birthday, we remember him. and we ask ourselves what his life and his death demand of us now. Charlie built this movement with ideas and energy, believing you could win people over if you refused to back down. Think about how Charlie operated. Yes, he was provocative. Yes, he challenged people. But watch any of those prove me wrong videos again. He wasn't screaming. He wasn't mocking. He was listening. Then responding with facts, with logic, with questions that made people think. He understood something crucial. You can be absolutely uncompromising on your principles while still being gracious in how you engage. That's not weakness. That's mastery. That's why he won people over. And that's the example we need to follow. Being bold doesn't require bitterness. Standing firm doesn't mean shutting people out. If we want a conservative movement that outlasts this moment, we can't just fight the left. We have to show America why our ideas work, why they lift people up, why they make communities stronger and provide for a better life. When our rhetoric burns too hot, we lose the very people Charlie tried to reach. Anger draws a crowd, but it doesn't build coalitions. We need to be more than loud. We need to be right, and we need to be wise. Our founders understood this. Thomas Jefferson wrote that truth has nothing to fear from conflict unless disarmed of her natural weapons, free argument and debate. President Reagan saw this too. He said, peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the ability to handle conflict by peaceful means. Not through violence, not through intimidation, through ideas, through debate, through the strength of our convictions and the discipline of our leadership. That's what Charlie believed. He knew that if our ideas are right, we don't need to silence anyone. We just need to out-argue them. He spent his life proving that conservative ideas could win on hostile campuses, in hostile media, in front of hostile crowds, if we had the courage to make the case. Charlie's killer wanted us to become what the left says we are: angry, reckless, and dangerous. Let's prove them wrong. Let's be disciplined. Let's be focused. Let's show that real strength comes not from how loud we shout, but from how well we lead. The way we treat each other matters. The way we speak, the way we engage, that reveals our character as much as any policy. If we want Charlie's legacy to endure, it won't be decided by who yells the loudest. It'll be decided by who leads the best. It means we engage detractors instead of ignoring them. We ask questions. We listen. We find the one thing we agree on and build from there. It means we stop treating every disagreement like a blood feud. 70% agreement should be grounds for alliance, not 30% disagreement be grounds for excommunication. It means we build institutions, not just Twitter followers. We win school boards and city councils. We create the infrastructure that outlasts any one voice. It means we cultivate the next generation of leaders and mentor them. Charlie understood this. He didn't just yell into the void. He built something that will outlive him. So yes, let's keep the fire. Let's keep fighting for the America Charlie believed in. But let's fight with clarity, with purpose, with strength rooted in something deeper than anger. Let's fight the way Charlie would want us to, not with fear or fury, but with ideas that actually win. Charlie Kirk should still be here. He should be turning 32. A kid from the suburbs who started a movement in his parents' garage, who became a trusted friend to a president, who inspired a generation. He should have had decades more birthdays to celebrate, but he doesn't. And we decide what happens next. We decide whether his death silences us or sharpens us into the leaders this country needs. Happy birthday, Charlie. May God bless your family and bring them strength. And may your memory be a blessing for us all. Thank you, and good night.
All right.
Hello.
I appreciate the opportunity to be with you, and I need a light because I can't see, which isn't good for a guy with a gun. You want me to be able to see, right? You know, I wrote down, normally I'm just kind of off the cuff, question and answer kind of guy, but I did write down some thoughts about this tonight because I think it's important. So first, as we just heard Michael talk about, Charlie, happy birthday. But also thank you, Charlie, for reminding America that conviction and conversation can still coexist. You know, in my line of work, we've seen what happens when anger overtakes reason. We see it every day. Road rage, neighbors fighting over property lines, escalating to violence, shooting each other. We see that all the time. And it's easy to let frustration turn into fury. But I've also seen something else. When people of completely different backgrounds come together to solve problems, powerful things happen. Progress. Hey, Sandy. Sandy Nolenberg, old friend. I was Joe's treasurer when he was the chair of the congressional district. But we live in a moment where the loudest voices are often drowned out by the reasonable voices. The truth is, it doesn't take courage to yell at all, to be screaming in the face of other people. It takes courage to listen to what other people have to say. Let them talk and actually listen to what they say. Charlie did that. He engaged in dialogue. He listened to what they had to say, and then he responded, gave a very reasoned, very measured response. It doesn't take strength to divide. It takes strength to unite. And unity doesn't mean we think alike. It means we share a deeper bond, our love of country, belief in liberty, commitment to our families and the future. As we stand shoulder to shoulder for those things, even when we debate how to get there, we can cool the temperature and have that conversation even when we disagree. Not by watering down our values, but by elevating our tone. In our business, we call it de-escalation, communication. Charlie was good at that. We can still be firm in our principles and generous in our spirit. Because if America is going to heal and move forward, it won't because Washington's going to get it right. I don't see that happening. It's because we did. Right here, in a parking lot in Bloomfield Township, the local community, churches, law enforcement, teachers, families who chose and continue to choose to build bridges instead of walls, to talk to each other, communicate, have disagreements, but have it in an agreeable fashion. That's something we can do. We have done it in the past. When we treat each other with respect, even when we disagree, Because if you let it escalate into screaming matches, that fuels the division. And so I think it's important, and Charlie did this, reminding the next generation that being passionate doesn't mean being hostile. That courage and kindness can live together in the same sentence. And that leadership isn't about who shouts the loudest, it's about who serves the most. So the challenges, in my opinion, facing America, they're very real. But so is this country's resilience. I've seen some of the young people sign up and go off to the military, public safety. Thank you, Bloomfield Township, for being here. Bloomfield Township Police, appreciate you. Each of us can choose to be a calm voice in a noisy world and a unifier when it's easier to divide, and a patriot who leads with strength and grace. We can be that firm value that discusses why we believe in those values and why we believe the future is based on historical principles. And that's what Charlie did. And when you talk about turning point, many have said this, that in many respects it's almost prophetic that he named his organization Turning Point, and tragically that his death may be that turning point where more people understand and become engaged in a civil but a very forceful conversation about what this country is and what it continues to want to be and strive to be. Yeah, we can all strive to be better, and we do. But we have to do that with a fundamental bedrock of our values that created this country on so many levels. So I appreciate you all being here and standing in a parking lot on a chilly night to say thank you to Charlie. Thank you for what he did, engaging in those dialogues in settings where it's very hostile, so hostile that somebody thought instead of listening, they were going to climb up on a rooftop and shoot him. That's not a gutsy thing. That's not a smart thing. That's a dangerous, evil thing. And all of us need to denounce that and get back to standing for what this country believes in. God bless Charlie, God bless you, and God bless America.
Good evening. Mike Rogers, here to share a few thoughts. Sometimes a small spark can make a big difference. Oftentimes, if you've ever been into the dome of the United States Capitol, there's some amazing paintings there reflecting our history. Pocahontas, there was the surrender of the British to the Continental Army. And then there's one that doesn't seem all that remarkable. It's George Washington standing in front of the Continental Congress holding a white piece of paper. And what that signified, many historians believe, was the spark that created the greatest constitutional republic democracy in the history of the world. Because right after the war, the delegates to the convention got a little bit nervous. They thought, we have a king to deal with. And maybe we need a king to deal with that king. Imagine about a third of the delegates came to George Washington and said, you know what, we want you to be king. We think you should be king of America. And on that day, all on his own, and think about what he sacrificed. Years. He lost friends. He lost property. He'd been shot like 9 times. They never quite hit him. His jacket had a lot of holes in it. All of that sacrifice to create the country that we live in today. And because back then, when you controlled the military, you were in charge. And he had the fierce loyalty of the Continental Army. So imagine if someone came to you after all that service, all that sacrifice, and said you could be king. Wow, what a hard thing to turn down. he walked into the Continental Congress, and that white piece of paper symbolized in his hand, in that painting in our Capitol dome, was his resignation as Commander-in-Chief. He said, "This does not belong to me. It belongs to the future generations of Americans." He knew that there was something bigger than himself, that his courage, his sacrifice was something about bigger than himself. As I said, many historians believe that was the moment, that was the spark that created what we now know as the United States of America. And you think of that courage that happens every day. James, who stood up here, who grew up in Detroit, who had the courage to know that there is something bigger than my community. There is something bigger than myself. And it is all founded in faith and family and freedom. Think of the spark that Charlie Kirk gave to us, who had the courage as a young man to know that there was something bigger than himself and that he could be the voice that allowed college students, by the way, who were telling us for the last 2 years that they had to write papers that they didn't believe in to turn into their professors so they could get a grade to pass. And he said, "I can do something about it." He showed up at these campuses and said, "No, there's something bigger than that. Stand up for what you believe in." And what this symbolizes tonight, and thank you for being here, thank you for being out tonight, just to take a moment to thank someone who knew he was risking it all. Somebody who said in all of his events, the reason we are talking and debating is so that we're not shooting each other. The irony of that. He knew leading up to those events that assassination was possible. He would hug his family when he left, knowing that it could happen any day. But he had that courage. He provided that spark that allowed all of us to stand a little taller, that allowed college kids to understand that they are part of the solution, not part of the problem, that allowed conservatives to finally be able to stand up and not be angry about who we are, but about being uplifting in what we believe in the future of this country. And man, is there a difference. You know, when they had an issue, the left, they burned down cities. They attacked police officers. They screamed, "Defund the police." You can see the difference tonight. We have vigils. We pray for him, his soul, his family, the future of our country. That's what he gave us. The left may reach for the ammo box. We have been ignited to get excited and get to the ballot box for the future of our country. To know that we can stand in any corner on any campus and say that we do believe in faith and family and freedom of the United States of America. He showed us that each one of you holding that candle tonight can be that spark for maybe one, or maybe two, or maybe a community, or in Charlie's case, maybe a country gets motivated to stand up for what we know is right for the future of this country. You know, they may have killed a conservative soldier, but they have ignited an army of people who understand that we each have a responsibility to stand up and do what we can. And maybe we can't sit in that booth and debate college students, but maybe we can talk to a neighbor or a coworker. Maybe we can knock on a door and tell people, I care enough about the future of my country that I want to be a spark on this day. You know, there's so many people that are counting on us to get this thing right. I have to tell you a brief story. When I was a young FBI agent, working in Chicago. There was a young lady who had ran away from home. Organized crime had gotten her hooked on heroin and sent her to pay off her debt, a house of ill repute. And so we were able to get this young lady out when I was this young FBI agent. She was 17 when we got her out. She was 15 when she went in. She had track marks everywhere, in between her fingers, the back of her legs, in her neck. She didn't say a word. We got her in the car. We were taking her actually to counseling, to get counseling. And think of the life that she was looking at. She didn't say a word. We're driving for about 10 minutes in the car. She's looking out, giving that 1,000-mile stare. And she said after about 10 minutes, "Do you know why I didn't kill myself?" I'm a 26-year-old FBI agent. No, why? Because I knew somebody cared enough to come find me. Think about what that light represents on the end of your candle. It is hope for someone who is out there living under, I would argue, the left's regime about tolerance for crime and human trafficking. It is about our being able to stand up and say, we care enough to be engaged in our country, to get it to a better place, to allow us to stand up on every corner and say we are about faith and family and freedom, and America is better off for it. Charlie Kirk gave us the light on the end of that candle. Charlie, happy birthday. Thanks for what you've given us. Let us take this as the night that we say we will care enough to get America to a better place. God bless you.
Hey everybody, thanks again for coming out tonight. That concludes our program. I just wanted to remind you guys that this office is here 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. There's a lot of different resources that happen here, and it's your building. This is here for you guys. Meet your candidates. Pick up literature from your candidates. If you have a candidate that you want to use a door knocking event, start it off here and then move on. But please remember, this building is here for you guys, and this is the only way we're going to make Michigan red. So thank you again for coming out tonight. Have a great evening.
Yeah, I know, it's tough.